Just before the service, Marcus Mosley and I had a moment. At least it was a sacred moment for me. He was coming up to begin singing, and I went down to greet him. And I said, Marcus, this time that we have here now is about the light. It's about dedication to God, isn't it? And I looked at him in his eyes, and he looked at me, and he just said, Amen. The rich, beautiful man. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah. So I wanted to start off my message today with an offering by an unknown author, reportedly some long years ago. But these words could be our words, any one of us in this room today. He says, when I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. I found it difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my nation. When I found I couldn't change the nation, I began to focus on my town. And I couldn't change the town. And as an older man, I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realize the only thing I can change is myself. And suddenly I realize that if long ago I had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family and I could have made an impact on our town. Their impact could have changed the nation, and I could indeed have changed the world. We all, each of us, desire to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Everybody that I have ever worked with within the work of ministry always has a deep desire to be a benefit to other people. And sometimes people get frustrated with their lives, and they come and they just want to be listened to. Listened to around the unfoldment of their lives. And it becomes a very sacred thing to hold space and to really listen to them. I had a ministerial instructor in school some almost 20 years ago now, Tom Thorpe, who said many things in our communication class, but one thing that always has stayed with me. He said, show up, pay attention, and respond with love. Pay attention is really about listening, deeply and powerfully listening. And in a way, that's what our chaplaincy program here is all about. The 4 elements of chaplaincy is recognize God in the moment. Drop down into your heart and listen from that place. Hold space for a person, and obviously hold in confidence that is shared. I feel that in a very basic way, what the world needs, what the world requires now is a profound listening with each other, for each other. Listening to ourselves, listening to our spiritual family, those that are in our lives. There is nothing more important than the power of listening and then taking action in what, or holding what has been said. There's a powerful process of integration and release. Oftentimes when I'm sitting with people in my office, I'm acknowledging what they're saying, but I'm simply just holding space and listening to what they're saying, because in a very mystical way almost, things are integrating for them and they're releasing that which doesn't serve them anymore. And I never really became aware of the power of listening until when I was in my early 20s. Within a space of 2 years, 3 grandparents died and my father died, and I really needed somebody to listen to me. I didn't know where to go with all of that content and that stress around those losses, but fortunately I reached out, and I had some powerful listeners that held space while I went through that valley of the shadow of my own life. And they were trained as I have been trained over many years of holding that for a person, of beholding them and holding for them through the power of listening as they move through their lives. It's an honor and it's a privilege. One of the most important aspects of listening is obviously a communication. And the root of the word communication is to commune. And the definition that I looked up, well, what does commune mean? I know what it means to me, but it moves from circumference to center. Obviously, it means to converse or to talk together. The next layer is perhaps with a profound intensity, an exchange with feelings, an intimate rapport. An intimate rapport. Sometimes we can do away with the profound intensity. But there is a desire, I feel, within all people to have an intimacy with life. I was just talking yesterday. I had a session with a really great mentor of mine in Sedona. We do Skype once a month. It's interesting. He's a profound teacher. Very highly intuitive. But I found myself counseling with him instead of him counseling with me. And he said, I just require and I really need a shift in my life, Bruce. And I said, I really feel that you need an intimacy with your life. With life itself, because you can hold space for me, but on your own path, it's a deeper intimacy with life. So you and I are here to listen, to communicate with each other. There's a man that I want to utilize his work today, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, who really developed a system of communication. Because on the human level, you and I require techniques of communication, of nonviolent communication. On the spirit level, communication is instantaneous. It happens telepathically. Have you ever thought about that? And I'm not just talking about a concept. I remember one time, it was 20 years ago, and I was painting the shed in my backyard. And I was visited spiritually by my grandfather and grandmother and my father who had passed on. And they came to me just like that. And they said, telepathically, Bruce, we're here to take your brother home if he doesn't clean up his act. And that communication has stayed with me this whole time. And I went to my brother the next day, and I told him that. And his eyes got big as saucers. And he changed his life, because that was big medicine for him. But the point being is that that level of communication on a spirit level happens very, very quickly. But on the human level that we share, there is an art to communication. And Dr. Marshall Rosenberg talked about when he was in 1943, a young child, and they moved to Detroit, Michigan. And he said 2 weeks after we were there was race riots in the town, and 40 people were killed. And then after that settled out, he went to school. And the teacher called off his name during roll call, and there was 2 other boys in the class. And they looked at him and they said, "Are you a kike?" Which means a derogatory term for being a Jewish person. And then after school, they kicked him and beat him. And oftentimes in our life, we have these initial experiences that propel us into our life's work, because they're so raw and they're so unjust and they're so painful that it moves us into what it is that is ours to do. Dr. Rosenberg developed nonviolent communication as a result of those early experiences, because he saw people differently. He saw people with honor and love for who and what they were and are. And that is the real work of being a human being. And he talked about 4 levels of communication: to observe, to feel, to assess need and requests for and with the other person, to observe what it is that we are in a moment with another person, to observe. And I remember my father-in-law he developed a system when he was working with people, because he was a psychotherapist. He's 91 and he still has 2 clients that come to see him every week and have been for many years. The first question is, who am I? And he says, that's a real portable question, Bruce, because wherever you go, whatever context you're in, you can ask the question, who am I in this moment? That's observation. That's observing self within any situation. So I could ask myself, who am I in this moment? Who are you in this moment? What are you feeling in this moment? Be a whole array of different things, right? But to be with that. And what are your needs? What are your needs in this moment? Well, I would suspect that there would be a need to have a spiritual experience, a nourishment of your own soul, to be infused with a divine remembrance of the presence and power of the living Spirit within you. Because anything that I'm saying right now is just a mere glimmer of the great light and truth that dwells within each one of us in this place right now. We have very little real knowledge of the greatness and the wonder that we are as spiritual beings. But this is about divine remembrance of what we are. That is the core of the teachings. And if we remember who we are, if we observe and we feel it, and those needs are filled, our lives are healed in a beautiful way. That's what this, to me, is all about. Someone mentioned the other night, they were over at my home, and they said, you know, the work of the 21st century is to heal trauma. So this isn't just about a nice little church service. I'm fully committed to uncovering that light within you and in myself so that I can serve and have a joyous life. It says it is God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. Well, the kingdom is a state of consciousness that is underneath the bushel of all the made-up stuff that we have about ourselves. Do you claim that for yourself? Is this real to you? Do you have a fire in the belly around being in God? I mean, the other night, we had a fire in our belly listening to the Beatles music. It was the music of happiness. I mean, our musicians chose certain selections of that time that were about happy experiences. That the spiritual path is one of joy and happiness, aliveness. So, it's a vital work that we are engaged in. You know, oftentimes we banter around the idea that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. It's a nice little tidy phrase that we have. But what does that really mean? What is the purpose of being human on the earth? Well, all of my studies and everything that I have come across is that it's the path of the overcomer. Not the path of a victim, but the path of a victor, leading to being a venerable teacher. Because each one of us have this great capacity within each of our hearts. The seat of wisdom is right here. That's what this is about. To release the imprisoned splendor of what it is that is your capacity and your truth. So the process of nonviolent communication is something that we practice or could practice if we adopted this to work with people and ourselves in this human life. But what about our life with our spirit? And I wrote down some questions, and I just want to put them out there. What are your feelings around your connection with your soul right now? What are your needs, not only from and with others, but from and with your God? What is your concept of God right now? Is it limiting you or liberating you? And I am so brazen to say, if your concept of God does not serve you, get another concept of God. Get another God. What are your needs with your God? What are your requests of your God right now? Is your God listening to you? Our concept of God changes over the period or the progression of our lifetime. I need my God to be imminently here with me every moment, not some transcendent thought form idea. I need it to be a felt knowing within my soul all the time. So is our Creator empathetic to our needs and our feelings? Does your God love you? And do you love your God? Or are you in conflict with your God at this time? So like I said, I feel that this place is a place of healing trauma, so that we can dance our joys. And I wanted to close with something that's very much akin to the first illustration that I had about the man who really got it, that if he changed his own life, then his world would change, that he could contribute to the change of the world. And this is from the great philosopher Lao Tzu. He said, if there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. And if there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. And if there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. And if there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. If we have peace in the heart, then we have peace in our home. We have peace in our town, our city, our nation, our world. World peace is an inside job. It happens right here and right now. And it all really begins with the power of listening to that internal voice, that quiet voice within. So I'm just standing up here right now to remind us of the power of listening to our own heart. That is the divine solution. God bless us. Thank you.